The silence of the void is usually comforting to the High Exarch of the Eldrin Dominion. For 3,000 years, silence has meant submission. It has meant that the lesser species, those primitive biological mistakes scattered across the spiral arm, have learned their place. It has meant that the great golden fleets of the Dominion have done their work, pacifying resistance and bringing the chaotic noise of free will into the orderly quiet of servitude. High Exarch Kael'thas stood upon the obsidian bridge of the Sovereign's will, a dreadnought the size of a small moon. Through the panoramic viewers, which were not glass but energy fields holding back the cold vacuum, he looked down at the blue and white marble suspended in the dark. Earth. Sol III, the cradle of the stubborn. It had been 20 years since the Dominion arrived in the Sol system. 20 years since the initial orbital bombardments turned the great cities of humanity into glass craters. 20 years since the blockade began. In the history of the Dominion, no siege had lasted this long. Usually, a species surrenders after the first orbital strike. If they are particularly foolish, they surrender after the second. Humans were different. They did not surrender. They just went underground. They dug deep into the crust of their world, hiding like insects, shielding their heat signatures, scrambling their communications. They ceased all aggressive actions 5 years ago. For 5 years, not a single missile had risen from the atmosphere. Not a single kinetic round had scratched the paint of a Dominion frigate. Kael'thas took a sip of nutrient nectar from a crystal flute. He believed the war was over. He believed the humans had finally suffocated in their holes, starving and broken, accepting that the sky belonged to the Eldrin. He was preparing the order to begin the colonization phase, where the atmosphere processors would descend and make the air breathable for his kind, choking out whatever human survivors remained. He turned to his sub-commander, a tall, slender alien with iridescent scales named Vrex. Vrex bowed low. Exarch, the planetary scan is complete. Thermal pockets are diminishing. Carbon dioxide levels in the lower tunnels are rising. The indigenous population is failing. It is time to land the bioharvesters. Kael'thas nodded slowly, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. A pity. They were a resourceful species, if crude. Their early resistance was spirited. Do you remember the tactic they used near the gas giant of this system? Vrex twitched his mandibles in a sign of amusement. Yes, Exarch. They strapped nuclear engines to asteroids and hurled them at us. Primitive. Ineffective against our shielding, but biologically brave. Brave, Kael'thas mused. Or stupid. It matters not. Prepare the harvesters. I want this system pacified by the next rotation. I have grown tired of this yellow sun. It is too bright, too harsh. I long for the crimson glow of the home world. The bridge was calm. Hundreds of drone officers worked silently at holographic interfaces, managing the logistics of an empire that spanned 1,000 stars. The Dominion was invincible. It was the apex of evolution. Then a single tone chimed. It was not an alarm. It was a communication alert. A primitive, low-frequency radio wave was pushing through the sophisticated quantum interference of the blockade. Vrex frowned, tapping a console. Exarch. We are receiving a transmission. Source? The planetary surface, North American continent, Sector 4, the ruins of what was once Washington. Kael'thas sighed. A surrender, finally. They wished to beg for their lives before the harvesters grind them into protein paste. Put it on the main speakers. Let the crew hear the sound of victory. Vrex complied. Static hissed through the bridge, harsh and grating. Then the static cleared, replaced by a voice. It was not the pleading voice of a broken leader. It was not the weeping of a defeated general. It was a voice of absolute, terrifying calm. It sounded like grinding stones. "This is General Vance of the United Earth Defense Command," the voice said, "to the commander of the alien fleet occupying our system. You have exactly 15 minutes to jettison your weapons cores, lower your shields, and broadcast a total surrender on all frequencies. If you do not comply, we will remove you from existence. Clock starts now." The transmission cut out. For a moment, there was silence on the bridge. Then, a low, chittering sound of laughter rippled through the crew. Vrex looked at Kael'thas, his eyes wide with amusement. Did the insect just threaten us?" Vrex asked. "They are hiding in holes, eating rats, and they threaten the Sovereign's will?" Kael'thas chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. "Perhaps the carbon dioxide buildup has caused hallucinations. 15 minutes? Or what? They will throw another rock at us?" "Exarch," Vrex said, still smiling. "Shall I target the source of the transmission and incinerate the area? Just to be sure." "No." Kael'thas waved a hand dismissively. "Let them watch the clock run down. Let them count the seconds until their demise. It adds a flavor of despair to their end. Proceed with the harvester deployment. Ignore the idle threats of ghosts." Minutes 1 through 3 passed in relative routine. The massive hangar bay doors of the Dominion fleet began to open. Thousands of sleek, silver harvester drones drifted out into the void, descending toward the clouds of Earth like a swarm of locusts. Kael'thas watched them go, feeling the satisfaction of a job finished. At minute 4, the sensor officer, a drone of low intelligence but high processing power, made a noise of confusion. "Exarch, I am detecting an energy spike." "Source?" Vrex asked lazily. "Everywhere," the officer replied. The bridge went still. "Explain," Kael'thas commanded, stepping forward. The officer's fingers flew across the light interface. "It is not coming from the surface, Exarch. It is coming from the debris field." The debris field. Over 20 years of siege, the space around Earth had become a graveyard of smashed satellites, destroyed human defense platforms, and the wreckage of civilian stations. Millions of pieces of metal, trash, and junk orbited the planet in a dense, chaotic ring. The Dominion had ignored it, their shields easily deflecting the occasional collision. "The energy signature is increasing exponentially," the officer said, his voice trembling slightly. "It is. Harmonic resonance." "Exarch, the debris is moving." On the main view screen, the chaotic cloud of junk that shrouded Earth shifted. It didn't just drift, it aligned. Millions of pieces of jagged metal, spent rocket stages, and broken hulls began to rotate in unison. Small blue lights flickered to life on every single piece of trash. "They didn't build a fleet," Vrex whispered, the color draining from his scales. "They weaponized the garbage." "Shields to maximum," Kael'thas roared, the nectar glass shattering in his hand. At minute 6, the first strike hit. It wasn't a missile. The humans had spent 5 years in silence, not cowering, but retrofitting. Every piece of debris in orbit had been secretly fitted with a microthruster and a magnetic rail driver. They had turned the orbital junkyard into a networked, synchronized Gatling gun the size of a planet. A hail of tungsten rods, hyper-accelerated by the synchronized magnetic fields of the debris ring, slammed into the Dominion fleet. The Sovereign's will shuddered violently. The void lit up with silent explosions as smaller frigates, caught off guard, were shredded. The sheer volume of fire was incalculable. It wasn't precision targeting. It was a wall of metal moving at a fraction of the speed of light. "Report!" Kael'thas screamed, clutching the railing as the ship listed. "Shields down to 70%. The kinetic energy is overloading the emitters. We cannot track the targets. There are millions of them. Return fire. Burn the field. We are trying, Exarch, but they are too small, too cold. Our targeting computers are designed for starships, not trash. Minute 8 brought the horror. The kinetic storm was just the distraction. As the Dominion fleet turned its weapons toward the debris field, trying to vaporize the incoming storm of metal, the deep-range sensors screamed a warning that froze the blood of every officer on the bridge. "Exarch!" the sensor officer shrieked. "Launch detection!" From the surface. Finally, Keltas thought, the missiles. We can shoot down missiles. Multiple launches, the officer continued. High velocity. They are not targeting the fleet. What? Keltas looked at the tactical map. Hundreds of red streaks were rising from the Earth's poles. They punched through the atmosphere, ignoring the battle raging in orbit. They accelerated past the Dominion ships, screaming into deep space. "Where are they going?" Vrex asked, confused. "They are missing us. They are fleeing." "No," the sensor officer said. "The data, Exarch, the trajectories. They are locking onto the slipspace beacons." The bridge fell into a silence deeper than the void. The Dominion's power relied on the slipspace beacons. Giant, ancient structures floating at the edge of the system. They acted as the anchors for the wormhole network. They connected the Sol system to the rest of the Empire. They were the supply lines, the communication relays, the only way home. "If they destroy the beacons, we are trapped here," Vrex breathed. "But that would take months. They are just missiles." "Exarch!" The officer's voice dropped to a whisper. "Those are not missiles. Spectral analysis indicates they are loaded with antimatter and chronometric distortion drives." Keltas felt a cold terror grip his heart. Chronometric distortion. That was forbidden technology. Theoretical physics that the Dominion had banned because it destabilized the fabric of reality. If a chronometric warhead hit a slipspace beacon, it wouldn't just destroy the beacon. It would send a feedback loop through the wormhole. It would travel instantly, faster than time, to the other end of the connection. And the other end of the Sol beacon connected directly to the Alpha relay. The Alpha relay connected to everything. The homeworld, the shipyard colonies, the treasury worlds. "They aren't targeting us," Keltas whispered. "They are targeting the Empire." Minute 10. "Intercept them," Keltas screamed, his voice breaking into a panic that stripped away 3,000 years of dignity. "Ignore the debris. All batteries, target the outgoing projectiles. If they hit the beacons, everything ends." The Dominion fleet panicked. The massive dreadnoughts tried to turn, their engines flaring blue-white. But the debris field, the trash, adjusted. The humans were controlling the cloud. The wall of metal shifted, thickening directly in the path of the Dominion's weapons, acting as a shield for the escaping missiles. "We cannot get a lock. The debris is blocking our firing solutions." Minute 12. The human missiles reached the edge of the system. They were moving at speeds that defied the laws of physics, riding waves of distorted time. On the main screen, Keltas watched the tactical display. The red dots were seconds away from the blue icons of the beacons. "Hail them," Keltas shouted. "Hail the humans." "General Vance, get him on the screen." The static cleared instantly. The face of General Vance appeared. He was an old man, scarred, with eyes like flint. He sat in a bunker, lit by the red glow of emergency lights. "Call them off," Keltas pleaded, abandoning all pretense of superiority. "You do not know what you are doing. If you strike the beacons with chronometric weapons, the feedback will shatter the subspace network. It will not just destroy the gate. It will collapse the stars at the other end. You will kill billions. You will wipe out civilizations that have nothing to do with this war. Vance looked at the camera. He didn't blink. He took a slow drag from a primitive combustion stick. A cigar. "We know," Vance said. His voice was heavy, tired, and utterly devoid of mercy. "You came here to exterminate us. You burned our cities. You killed 6 billion of my people. You thought because we went quiet, we were beaten." "We surrender," Kael'thas screamed. "We will leave. We will never return. Just disarm the warheads." Vance shook his head slowly. "Too late for that. You wanted a war of extermination. You wanted to erase humanity from history. We are just returning the favor. We aren't trying to win a battle, Exarch. We're ensuring that no one ever tries to fight us again." "But," Kael'thas stammered, "my people, the civilians." "Should have thought of that before you glassed Paris," Vance said. The general reached forward and pressed a key. "Enjoy the view." The connection cut. Minute 14. The missiles impacted the beacons. There was no explosion, not in the conventional sense. There was a tear in the fabric of the universe. The view screen showed the stars at the edge of the system twist and scream. A color that eyes were not meant to see. A violent, sickly violet ripped open the void. The beacons collapsed. And then the horror truly began. Because the Sovereign's will was connected to the Dominion's quantum network, they received the telemetry from the rest of the Empire instantly. Kael'thas watched the monitors on his bridge turn red. All of them. The feedback pulse traveled through the wormhole network. It bypassed space, bypassing time. It emerged at the Alpha Relay in the heart of the Dominion. The Alpha Relay detonated with the force of a supernova, but constrained within the subspace tunnels. The shock wave propagated to every gate connected to it. The display showed the status of the home world. Signal lost. The status of the treasury worlds. Signal lost. The shipyard colonies. Signal lost. One by one, the lights of the Eldrin Dominion, an empire that had stood for 3,000 years, winked out. In seconds. Entire solar systems were swallowed by the chronometric collapse, their stars destabilized, their planets pulled into nothingness. Billions of lives, trillions of years of history, art, science, conquest, love, hate, gone, erased, because they pushed the humans too far. On the bridge of the Sovereign's will, the crew stood paralyzed. They weren't fighting anymore. They were ghosts. They were the last survivors of a species that had just gone extinct. Kael'thas fell to his knees. He looked at the screen, at the blue marble of Earth. It looked so small, so fragile. Minute 15. The feedback loop from the destroyed beacons finally washed back into the Sol system. A shockwave of energy, the death scream of the Dominion Empire, rushed inward from the edge of the system toward the trapped fleet. The debris field, the human weapon, parted. The humans opened a path, letting the shockwave pass through their defenses, guiding it straight toward the alien ships. Kael'thas looked at Vrex. Vrex was weeping, staring at a blank console where his family's biosign used to be. We are the only ones left, Vrex whispered. Not for long, Kael'thas said softly. The shockwave hit the fleet. The shields of the Sovereign's will, already battered by the railguns, collapsed instantly. The violet fire of the chronometric storm washed over the hull. The metal did not melt. It aged. It rusted and turned to dust in milliseconds. As the bridge disintegrated around him, Kael'thas had one final thought. He realized the terrifying truth of the universe. The universe isn't ruled by the strong. It isn't ruled by the advanced. It is ruled by the ones who are willing to do anything, absolutely anything, to survive. The humans were not insects. They were not prey. They were the predator that sleeps until you step on its tail. And the Eldrin Dominion had stepped hard. The Sovereign's will vanished into dust, scattering into the solar wind. Epilogue. General Vance stood in the silence of the command bunker. The screens showed the debris of the alien fleet drifting in the void. The violet tear in space at the edge of the system was slowly closing, sealing itself like a scar. The room was filled with technicians, strategists, and soldiers. No one cheered. There was no applause. There was no joy in what they had done. They had committed a crime against existence to save themselves. They had burned a galaxy to save a world. A young comms officer took off her headset. Her hands were shaking. "General," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Deep space scans confirm. The Dominion network is down, all of it. We aren't detecting any coherent signals from their territory. It's all silent." Vance nodded slowly. He looked down at the cigar in his hand. It had gone out. He placed it on the console. "Record a message," Vance said. "Broadcast it on every frequency, open channels, wide band, omnidirectional." "What should it say, sir?" Vance looked up at the tactical map of Earth, scarred but still turning. "Alive." "Tell the galaxy. Tell anyone who is listening that Earth is closed. Tell them we just want to be left alone. Tell them that if they come here in peace, we will greet them in peace." He paused, his eyes hardening. "But tell them, if they bring war, we will finish it. We don't care about the rules. We don't care about honor. We will burn time itself to keep our children safe." He turned to leave the room. "Tell them, humanity sends its regards." Vance walked out into the corridor, the heavy steel door sealing behind him with a final, resonant thud. The war was over. The silence of the void returned. But this time, it was not the silence of submission. It was the silence of a warning etched into the graveyard of an empire floating in the dark. Do not touch Earth.